Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Who Are You podcast. I'm your host, Connor Overbay. Every single week, guys, coming out of Jacksonville, Florida. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, welcome. You guys can give us a follow on all our social media. It's going to be at Who Are You Pod from everything from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the normal spots. Also, if you guys are checking us out on YouTube, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. The followers are starting to grow a little bit more, and we're really happy about that. As well as if you guys know anybody who has a story that needs to be told, whether it's a business owner, an entrepreneur, or really a mix of anybody, and you think they'd be a good fit for the show, feel free to shoot me a message on any of the social media, or you can shoot me a message on our email. It's going to be whoareyoupod@yahoo.com. But today we're sitting down with a very, very special guest. This gentleman I've been seeing on the social media for a little while now. He's collaborated with a couple people we've had on the podcast, so this has been a long time coming. So today I'm sitting down with Mr. Jordan Mixson. So shout out to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Before we get started in the conversation, if you want to let everybody know where they can give you a follow or check out anything you got going on right now, feel free to promote.
Sure. So you can follow me on Instagram at Jordan Mixson. It's my name with the underscore. So it's Jordan Mixson _. And then you can also check out my portfolio work at my website, www.jordanmixson.com. There you can contact me and you can see an extension of my photography work.
Yeah, so like I said, welcome to the podcast. Obviously, like I was saying, I've seen you on other platforms such as OG Sessions. Shout out to the boys. I saw your interview on there.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, and you also did a collaboration with Upland Clothing Co. So Jesse Farrell, shout out to him as well. So you've kind of been around for a little bit. And obviously, you do your own work behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, all over Instagram, which I really love. So we're kind of going to get to know your backstory in the beginning here first, and then we'll get to a little bit more into your work and everything else you do behind that as well. Is that a wrap?
That's good.
Perfect. So obviously we were talking before the podcast started, and you said you're originally from Jacksonville, correct?
That's right. Born and raised here in Jacksonville, Florida. Homegrown Florida boy.
That's the thing that's funny. Like, I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people are transplants to Jacksonville.
Yes.
So it's kind of rare that you meet, like, just me and you were born and raised here in Florida, or Jacksonville, Florida. So it's cool to meet someone else who's a lifer here as well.
It's rare.
It is.
My brother. I mean, shout out to all that have come to Florida. Isn't it fantastic? I mean, but, yeah. Born and raised here in Jacksonville, Florida. I have a little sister. My dad is also originally born and raised here in Jacksonville as well.
Oh, wow. So multiple generations. Love to hear that.
My mom, now she was originally born and raised in the Bronx for a little bit, and then kind of trickled down, kind of traveled around a little bit, but really trickled down into like the Richmond, Virginia area, because her dad, my grandfather, worked for the railroad. Okay. And then we have a lot of family around the Richmond, Virginia area, and then moved down to Orlando, lived there for a bit. And the cool thing was, like, my granddad because he worked in railroads, at the time he worked for Disney World.
What?
And, yeah.
That's really cool.
It was cool. It was the time where they could like go into the parks for free, and his job was to basically check all the railroad tracks, all the rides at night, so that allowed them access. And then my mom finally made her way down here, met my dad, and then here I am.
That's awesome. I have a story that ties in with the railroad as well. My grandfather worked for the railroad as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he worked for CSX, a train company here in Jacksonville.
Same.
And they're originally from, my mom's from a place called Bedford, Pennsylvania. It's about an hour away from Pittsburgh, real small town.
Okay.
And when her and my dad met, they got married, and then my grandfather on my dad's side was working for the railroad, and she decided to join CSX. So they moved down here to Jacksonville, Florida, and that's how they kind of ended up here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so, and she still works there to this day. She's been there for, going on probably like 25, 30 years now.
Wow.
So she's been with the railroad for a while. So it's cool that your family had that same tie.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy how, all that kind of stuff will move you around and everything. Because, like, for me personally, I thought about moving away from Jax, and still a thought in my head, but I'm just like, I really don't know where I'll go, because I feel like there's so much stuff here.
You're a local. You're true local.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, like, anytime me and Shannon get a chance to travel, like we got engaged in Colorado. I love Colorado. It's super beautiful.
I've never been. I've always wanted to go.
Where are some places that you traveled around? I'm guessing up to New York, right? For like fashion weeks and stuff.
Yeah, I've been to New York for New York Fashion Week. That was something. That's an adventure.
For sure.
Especially, I'd never been before to New York, period. Been to California.
Oh.
Georgia. honestly, there's not a lot of places in the U.S. That's on my things to do list. I want to travel more. Because I have friends mostly between those states I mentioned, but there's just a few other places that I want to check the box off of.
No, I totally agree with you. That's like, me and her aren't crazy world travelers. It's just we've gotten opportunities to go. Like her company that she works for a law office, and they've been nice enough where they pay for her to go on a cruise every year, and then I get to tag along for like an extra couple $100. So we've gone to Mexico together, the Bahamas, Cayman Islands, a mix of other places, and then really in the United States, I've been to Jersey, Pennsylvania, all where the family's at, Colorado, Lake Tahoe. And then like the Carolinas, I think, is where I've mostly been. So
now I should add that I have been out of the country. That's the one part that's like, well, I haven't been to. Well, I've been to Germany, Czech Republic, and then this year, Paris, France.
Wow.
Yeah.
What all brought you to like Germany and everything?
Well, I was seeing someone at the time.
Ooh, I like it.
It was kind of a funny thing. Like friends of the family. They kind of wanted to introduce me to someone that was like a relative that would come in from Germany into Jacksonville like around the summer. And so basically two forces came together and put us together. And like, we actually did kind of hit it off. So it was a bit of a interesting long distance relationship. It was kind of like, well, she would be here, but then she would go back, and then we would talk a lot back when I felt like Instagram was still it was just super new, but Facebook was just more of a juggernaut at the time.
Oh yeah, I remember those days.
A lot of our communication was like between like calling on the phone, which that was a challenge at the time because you got to think 6 hours ahead. But then we were just messaging each other on Facebook a lot. So yeah, that was an interesting time. Yeah, but I got a chance to visit the south of Frankfurt. That's where she lived.
That's really cool. That's a place that's on my bucket list is Germany. I would love to go check it out, just see the culture, You
have to go. I have a really close friend of mine that's German who has family that lives in Frankfurt. But what I loved about Germany is just the fact that basically 50% of the population like speaks English. So when you go, you can speak English and travel, be fine. Now, when you live there, it's best to know German. I'm
sure.
But it's also such a melting pot of a lot of different cultures. And I just didn't realize how multicultural Germany really is. And particularly where my girlfriend at the time, where she lived about an hour and a half away from Frankfurt, it was like the wine countryside of Germany.
Oh, wow.
Which is something else that was new to me at the time because I was like, at this time, I was like around sophomore in high school. Sophomore in college.
Gotcha.
And there's like these vineyards, but you see these beautiful small towns that look like postcards from a storybook. And the food is great. There's these beautiful places to check out that's like easy access. Most people are traveling using the train. It's really expensive to drive because at the time it was like $9 again.
Oh,
yes.
Oh,
it's wild. You're carpooling. Like you have to, for anyone owning a car, and this was years ago, so I don't even know what it's like now.
Right, it's like $20 now.
We'll fact check that. We'll see. But it would not shock me. But a lot of the times, folks just travel via train. But
that's really cool.
Yeah, it was great.
So I always ask some people, I've never had a chance to go over to Europe or really any other like major countries like that.
Yeah.
Do they are they okay with Americans? Are they usually pretty nice to Americans that come over there? Or did you ever have like a rough situation with anybody?
No, I personally never had a rough situation with traveling abroad like that. It was such an interesting time because it was many first. Getting on a plane. I had never been on a plane.
You went to Germany your first time ever going on a plane?
It was love. It was deep love.
See, I have a little bit of a I'm not like scared of flying, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little more nervous about it. I don't know what it is, and that's a long flight. That's not like 2 hours and you're there.
But see, here's the best part about that. So you got to get your passport and all. Thankfully, I had a lot of good guidance on what you do. You got to and because my girlfriend at the time, she had family here, and then there was family back where she lived. Like, there was a lot of guidance on what to do.
Gotcha.
Pack for this, pack for that. So making sure that, you know, you have a smooth transition. The only thing that was like really challenging for me was not so much as the Jax airport, but I had to take a flight from Jax to Atlanta, and the Atlanta airport is something else. I'm like, it is a freaking city. That intimidated me because it's like, this is not Jacksonville.
That place is huge.
It is huge.
We just went on a trip to Ohio and had to fly into Atlanta for a connecting.
Yeah.
And you could run probably 2 miles down just to get to somewhere where you need to be for the gate. It's crazy.
If anything, that sense of urgency really kicked in when I only had a little bit of downtime between to make the connecting flight. Mm-hmm. So from there, and when you actually finally get to Germany, no, it was good. You converting, US dollars to euros, everything like the tax is kind of built into the price.
I'm sure.
So it's like easy math right there. The only thing that was like new to me was like asking for like ice cubes is like, that's a whole thing. That's not really a thing.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But the legal drinking age at the time was 16 to have a beer, and they have like quote unquote teenage beers. Mm-hmm. They have like what we have for like orange and grape soda, they have the teenage beer version of that.
That's pretty cool.
And that was awesome for me. I mean, I had plenty of other beers that was like stuff I could never pronounce, but like 14-letter words.
Oh my God.
But it was like, if it was that long, that means it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The food was fantastic. I would say the locals, everyone was nice. Now, at the town that I was visiting, you had a lot of African immigrants and Turkish. So for me coming in as an American, it was kind of interesting because they viewed me, even being dark complected. I'm viewed as, well, Black Americans are kind of considered exotic.
Okay.
That's the term they use, and it's not a derogatory. It's actually no, it's a compliment. But they would use that. Me and my girlfriend at the time, she's mixed race. She was mixed race. She's mixed race, and so they viewed us as exotic. But then the Africans living there as Black, which was like, oh, let me wrap my head around that.
That is kind of weird, yeah.
But because there's such a high conversion of a lot of what it is just a lot of foreign exchange students getting their education there, and they just live. But overall, everybody's really, really nice. I never had an issue. I would easily go back.
That's really
totally
cool.
Go back.
No, that's definitely on my bucket list. I would love to go to like Oktoberfest, go check out one of those, and then really just go immerse myself in the culture. That's my favorite. Anytime I get a chance to go, meet different kinds of people. Like when we went to the Cayman Islands, we have a rum from over there. We went and did a rum tour, and got to meet a couple people who are locals and really get to know. You can see stuff on TV, you can read stuff, and that's a lot of times a tourist trap. But getting to actually meet a person who lives there on a daily basis and kind of try the food and all that, that's something I personally enjoy.
Yeah,
I'm not like a picky eater. I really kind of will try a mix of anything. So that's kind of my favorite part of going to a new place, trying the food, meeting the people, and getting to really know the actual spot rather than just what you see on TV.
Also, I have a huge soft spot for European living anyway, because I was brought up appreciating the arts, and I'm a classical musician, violinist. Being over there when you're in a city or just a culture that embraces not only its rich past for like centuries, it was really cool to see street musicians. Oh, yeah. And this was before I even took photography like seriously or anything like that, but just being a guest in a whole other country. One thing that was really thoughtful of that with my girlfriend at the time was taking me to places that she knew I would like, that would like support classical music, which is a no-brainer there. It's nothing to see a street musician there that has a violin and they're playing waltzes, or they're playing, it will be something modern, but also a mix of something easy, light classical pieces. And I just thought that was brilliant, because it made me think about at home how actually here in America, there's actually a really rich classical history of composers too, but we're not, in my humble opinion, we're not as connected in knowing about great classical American composers here. Mm-hmm. But there, it's like, it's acknowledging the rich history and also progressing.
Yes.
So the fusion of the two, that just left a deep, deep impact. I just love how Europeans do life. It's just a lot. There's a set time for work, and then they make time to, decompress, socialize. Not everything it has to be like, so hardcore, go.
I feel like it's something we're missing here in the States a lot. I think so. A lot of people are working themselves to death. To
death.
That's my whole thing when it comes to just my life schedule in general. Mm-hmm. Like, this is something that I enjoy, so I make time to do the podcast because one, I get to meet great people like you, make connections, and really get to know my community, and not just looking at a screen like I am at work all day or doing something that I feel like I'm not really connected to. Mm-hmm. And as you were saying, just a lot of people will be like, oh, I worked 60 hours this week. I worked 70 hours this week. I'm like, how long did you hang out with your kids? Like, how long did you spend time with your wife? Did you cook dinner with your wife or significant other in general? I feel like that's kind of the part where everybody's like, oh, I worked this hard. I did this week. I made this amount of money. And that's great. If that's what motivates you, that's perfectly fine. Just for me, we only have such a short span on in life in general. Right. I'd prefer not to work myself to death and go enjoy you can still enjoy the finer things if you're not a millionaire.
Right. And that's another thing too. It was, I had mentioned about how, how would I be viewed in a different country when, not that I thinking about race all the time or anything like that, but just kind of what was fascinating and how people in general, just Europeans in general, what I appreciate is the fact that they just accept you for who you are. Mm-hmm. It's not really that difficult to have a conversation that feels like there's these barriers. Like, I'm trying to put you in a box. Like, are you this? Are you that? Are you this? Are you that? Sure, we all have our natural curiosities about each other, of course. But striking a conversation and just embracing that person for who they are. It doesn't feel like you have to do these delicate dances sometimes of the niceties. It's just like, no, this is okay. Well, that's you, and that's cool. Let's go grab some wine, or let's go get beer about,
Yeah.
It's not making a big deal over something that's not really a big deal.
No, I totally agree. I feel like, just like you were saying, the niceties and having kind of dance around a question kind of thing. I totally understand what you mean. That's like, luckily for me growing up, I was always surrounded by a mix of people.
Right.
And so I grew up here in Jacksonville, and I went to Sandalwood High School here in Jacksonville.
Right.
So at least back then, it was a little bit more... It was more African American than it was like white kids and all this other stuff. But I also grew up playing basketball, so I was used to that. That's nothing weird for me. So I kind of grew up always around people, whether it's different skin tones or different religions and everything. And my family always taught me, like, that's fine. They do them, and whatever you believe in is fine as well. Yeah. It's just live your life. You don't have to hate someone, whether it's the color of your skin or ethnicity or your religion or anything like that. Yeah. So I've just always grew up and just been happy to ask, and that's why I have every kind of person on this show. Because I feel like, it helps me learn as well, because there's so much in this world I don't know about, whether it's like obviously what we're talking about today, whether it's photography, fashion, blogging. I don't know too much about it. I like to sit down and learn, and you guys help me learn every time I sit down with someone new.
And folks are to the point. That's what I love about Europeans.
I'm sure.
It's so to the point. It's just like, what are we doing? I have some other European friends, and I kind of joke with them sometimes about like, so what is dating like? And like, well, it's either what are we? Are we a couple or not? They're not really into situationships.
That's real.
I'm like, I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect that.
That's
so
a
much.
real thing.
I'm like, are we or are we not? Let's not waste. That's the biggest thing that I appreciate over there that like sticks with me. It's just, let's not waste time. What is this?
That's real. I say in the day of like Tinder and all the different dating apps nowadays, it's just like, ugh. I was lucky enough where I met Shannon before all that stuff kind of really took off. Like I was my freshman year of college, so 2017, 2018. So I was like, all that kind of stuff got big after I was really in college and we were in a relationship. So I was like, I'm kind of thankful I didn't deal with all that kind of stuff because, as you said, man, situationships are huge nowadays. I know many people who are like, oh yeah, I mean, we had a kid together, but we're not like dating or anything like that. I'm like, what?
This sounds like a huge deal.
This sounds like a commitment to me, but
sounds like a commitment, but
at least 18 years, nothing crazy.
Oh Lord. Okay.
No, but I love it. So you said you kind of grew up around like classical music and like loving of the fine arts. Were your parents like really into this, or was this more something you discovered as you got older?
Oh yeah. So my mom is the dancer of the family. She took ballet. She took dance classes. She was a cheerleader.
Okay.
Growing up. My dad, not so much. He appreciated classical music. I grew up listening to Motown. Classical music didn't really come till late because I was a late bloomer being exposed to the music. It wasn't until I was around 11 and a half when I just was pretty much at a place where I wanted to do something, find some kind of hobby, but I didn't know. I was just kind of all over the place. I even tried basketball because my family was peer pressuring. You know what happens with tall folks? I'm like, oh, you're tall.
I feel you, man. I feel you
should
on
play
that.
basketball. And I'm like, okay. I joined the YMCA for a summer camp. Absolutely horrible. It was a mess. I had no concept of exercise whatsoever. I would literally come to practice, not remember anything, any drills, plays. My concept of hydrating was drinking a Coke.
Oh, no. So you're out there with cramps holding your side and everything.
I had no concept. I was like, I'm so tired all the time. I was the worst person, like the worst player on the team. Not the worst person. I was nice. But definitely not the person to make the plays.
I understand.
There was a kid that was like, even still when I think about it, like, that kid was huge. I was like, I think that kid would have to been like 6'2" already. I'm like, what's going on? So my only claim to fame to that was there was this one game where basically the play was pass it to the best player. It wasn't a big deal. I got the ball and I didn't pass it to him. I said, I'm going to take it. Y'all think I suck anyway. And I made like this 3-point shot. They're like, oh my God.
Ooh.
Like my dad was shocked. I think he felt for the first time, oh, my money was well spent.
It was worth it. It was worth it.
I'm not a failure now, Dad. Oh yeah. That was a lot of fun. But after that, I was just kind of like, well, I don't know. My parents took to notice that I was always tapping on the window when I was listening to music. And he suggested, why not try violin? Violin was something that he always wanted to play, but he was not in a position when he was growing up. And my parents, I didn't even know this until around that age, that they had actually bought a violin for me, but it was just a fixture in the house.
Oh.
I didn't know it was meant for me. It's not playable, but it now just sits in my room. But I took my first lessons right after YMCA. I took my first private lessons with what was the Suzuki method. I don't know if you've heard of it.
You're gonna have to give me some more on that. I don't know the Suzuki method.
So, the Suzuki method is a pedagogy technique of teaching music mostly by playing by ear.
Okay.
And then learning music notation after that.
Interesting. Okay.
There was a school. It still exists. You don't really hear about it as much these days. It kind of died out. There's different schools of thought as you get older, or some use it. I was brought up with it. It's very rare to find a musician that was brought up with the Suzuki method as their first experience to learning music, but that's what I did. And I had private lessons, and I would take lessons over in Orange Park. There was a whole school for it. It had there was dance, there were piano lessons, there were violin lessons, there were cello lessons, viola lessons, piano lessons, and that's where I started.
Okay.
And I just fell in love. It was something about it just clicked the first lesson. My parents never told me to practice. I just felt like this was a real calling.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. It just felt so natural for me. It just unlocked a whole new world of expression for me. And the first CD that I listened to that was classical was the Vivaldi Four Seasons by Itzhak Perlman, famous violinist, who's now pretty much retired, but he was the window into learning and listening to this whole other deep, rich sonic world. And I was just hooked.
That's really cool.
It was incredible. I just thought, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. Wow. So I just took really well to the lessons. And this was during middle school when I started to really just take it seriously. I was spending like an hour, 2 hours, sometimes more. My parents had to tell me to stop. Me and my violin we were one. And that's when I had heard about Douglas Anderson while I was still learning solo repertoire. The idea of like wanting to play in an orchestra was really appealing to me because I was listening to a lot of orchestral music at the time while listening to Motown, R&B, jazz, all of it. But that I was just soaked, baptized in classical music.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I can hear the passion behind your voice.
Oh,
in this,
yeah.
and I love to hear that. That's the kind of stuff that gets me charged up about learning about these things. Because playing an instrument, I remember being in 5th grade playing like a recorder, and then I had band class in middle school, and it just never really clicked with me, kind of thing. I'm very much, if it doesn't really interest me, like either right off the bat or after a couple things, it's just kind of like off to the side for me. And anytime I walk by someone who either playing violin, playing guitar, playing any of kind of instrument, I find that amazing to be able to make something make a sound that can evoke emotion, evoke a way of thinking, or maybe just change your mindset right there. So I love learning about that kind of stuff because I think it would be so cool to be able to walk up and just grab an instrument and just start playing, and people are like, what the fuck? Or like people like, in the movies where a guy just walks up and starts playing piano, everybody's like, whoa, kind of thing.
Okay.
So no, I love that. I love that. And so you said you were around like 11 and a half when you said, that's crazy. And you still obviously play to this day since you said.
I have my bachelor's degree in music performance.
So is that what makes you classically trained? Is that what getting that degree is a thing to put up on the wall for that? Or how do you become someone who's like, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, is like respected, I guess, behind it kind of thing?
Traditionally having that degree.
Okay.
But there are variables out there.
Okay.
Mostly having that degree because of and it's sort of a fast forward. I had to kind of musically grow up, so to speak. When I got into Douglas Anderson, I was at the time exposed to some sight reading. But when I got accepted, you have to audition. For those that don't know, you have to audition to get in.
Oh, I actually didn't know that either.
Yeah,
interesting. Okay.
Oh, you have to audition to get in because there were kids coming from as far as like Orlando.
Really?
Yeah, St. Augustine.
If you don't mind, walk me through what is the process of auditioning for Douglas Anderson.
Well, it's a little different now, but I will say, at the time, you had to write why you wanted to get in. What did going into Douglas Anderson mean to you? You had to have a few letters of recommendation from,
How old are you going into Douglas Anderson?
Oh, gosh. Don't make me math.
At
this time.
This is high school, right?
High school.
So you're 14. 14, 15.
Yeah.
And you have to have letters of recommendation?
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh, yeah. It was because it's a Grammy-nominated school.
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
I knew it was very prestigious. Like, I've always heard about Douglas Anderson, but I never tried to go there, so I didn't realize it was that high up.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Because so many stars have, there's so many... Quite a few namesakes have come out of Douglas Anderson, and so they've at the time had that super high standard to make sure that the talent that was coming in would become an ongoing legacy for the school. That's why it was just like, we ain't just letting anybody in. It's like, no, we gotta see that diamond in the rough and see what was interesting for me. So there's La Villa School of the Arts, which is the middle school, but that's kind of the school that a lot of La Villa kids naturally progress to going. So they kind of get, no shade. It's like they get preference. It's like a sister school. Kind of like FSCJ is here to UNF kind of thing. Okay. It's a sister school. So I was coming straight from Mandarin Middle at the time. And I didn't come into DA already having the experience of playing in orchestras, because what would happen, there's teachers from both La Villa and DA would visit each other, especially from DA visiting La Villa to see the up-and-coming talent.
Gotcha.
So by the time, the would-be ninth grader is auditioning, there is a bit of a familiarity there. It was definitely a thing, especially if you were like a band kid or a jazz student. The jazz program just was phenomenal. So is the orchestra. But yeah, I got in, and I had to grow up fast, so to speak, where I was learning string repertoire, string orchestra. Learned to play in a string quartet, do duets.
Wow.
I was learning about what it means to be like a principal chair, concert master, learning how to be a leader when it comes to that, and also learning the difference between playing in an orchestra and then playing as a soloist. There are nuances to that. Learning how to read. It's a different form of body language reading.
Okay.
If I was to kind of sum it up when it comes to being in those leadership roles when you're in an orchestral setting, and also understanding the language that the conductor is conveying. I had to learn all of that. But it's still like the best. It was still the best creative, transformative time of my life.
That's really cool.
Because I graduated 2005. A lot of our graduating class are still here.
Oh, wow. That's really
there's
cool.
quite a few that went on and progressed. Some people definitely, when they graduate, some don't necessarily pursue the arts according to the art department that they're in, but quite a few do. And there's been ones that made it up to Hollywood. There was a jazz bassist that he, for a time, he graduated before me, but he was playing in the Michael Jackson band at the time. Oh, yeah.
Really? I didn't realize there was that much. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. So it was an incredible time to be around just visual artists. I felt it was an artistic paradise that was just kind of unheard of. Because coming up, I was kind of the awkward kid. I was the nerd. I was kind of the kid that you get picked on. I wasn't necessarily athletic. I wasn't necessarily into sports like that, but I enjoyed playing. Like dodgeball was my favorite thing.
Love some dodgeball. Those were good days back in school.
Still my thing. Like that was a big thing in middle school, but I wasn't like. Yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yeah, I understand.
And then at DA, I felt like an equal. Of like you had kids, like all kinds of artists, like. All of a sudden, the freaks were all like, as we were called, like the art freaks. No, it's like, what is that? What is that word? We don't. If anything, that's a compliment to us. Like, yeah, we just do some crazy stuff. Just the level of creativity that was coming out of people's minds. Being able to walk down the halls and you see visual artists painting, sketching, and then there's like. The guitar majors are having like a whole group circle thing,
little jam session,
a whole jam session.
That's really cool.
TV and film. We were getting visitors from various industries that were coming to like nurture the talent master classes. It was an incredible time for me.
Did you still take like normal like math classes, history classes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was also a major thing because once you get in, you had to remain and you had to maintain a certain grade point average.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So you had like your regular academics. You had your biology, American history,
normal stuff.
Yeah. But then it would be a situation where one day most of your classes leaned more towards your arts area.
That's really cool.
The next day leaned a little bit more towards your academics, or sometimes a mixture of both. It really depended on what the arts area you were in.
That's really interesting. And I think that's cool that they foster and like bring that up, because as you were saying, back in high school, kids were ruthless, straight ruthless.
Yeah.
I totally remember that. But it's cool that they're fostering and like promoting you and wanting you to do more and like keep growing in what you're doing. And obviously it's taken to where you are today and you still are in love with it. You went to college for it and everything. And I find that awesome.
Yeah, it was a fantastic experience. The classes that I took, it really did set me up well for success. And when I was pursuing my bachelor's at UNF, and especially when I had to take a lot more music theory classes and composition classes.
Yeah.
One cool class was recital lab.
Okay.
So every Friday at UNF, just to clarify, went to University of North Florida.
Mm-hmm. Shout out UNF. That's where Shannon graduated from,
too.
What's
up? I'll swoop.
Swoop.
Yeah. But one of the neatest and also the easiest A's you could ever get at UNF, I'm sure maybe there's someone else, but I don't think so. The easiest A you could get was to attend concerts and bring back the concert program.
I think you used to have to go do stuff. Didn't you used to have to go to like certain events and you'd have to get like bring back either a picture with someone or like a picture with the teacher or something like yeah, like extra credit stuff. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's really cool.
Yeah, that was so cool. And the whole point of it was to, regardless of what your concentration is as an instrumentalist, vocalist, is the importance of being exposed to different musical styles that informs your art.
I agree. Yeah.
And that's still inculcated in me today, because coming up, I mean, I would visit concerts. Well, it was kind of, I had this one time I went to this crazy death metal concert, and then I went to a symphony the next day.
I think that's pretty lit. That's on both ends. I like it.
It was a lot. And I didn't know I was attending a death metal. Some
screamo.
I was like, what kind of evil is coming up in here? I don't know. Something's being summoned.
The demons are here.
Oh my God. And then I was like, Beethoven.
I can relax now. No, I love that.
That was something else.
Well, like to tie into that, like that's something I enjoy doing, is going and being immersed in different things. Like I was telling you before we started the podcast about the Safe House. Yeah, they held an art event there, and that's actually the guy who did the art event there with Joe was wow, I'm losing his name, John Hawkins. Mm-hmm. You know, like sitting there and getting to listen to people, because I have no background in art when it comes to painting, drawing, music, any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So to sit back and listen to some of the biggest artists in Jacksonville sit there and, you know, tell that artist how they felt about their painting, right, what they could do better, and just hearing their lingo and everything, it really helps me kind of inform my opinions on things. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, I could look at something and be like, that's splatter on a wall, and then another person behind me is like, that makes me feel sad, or it makes me feel like you're angry in this, and then hearing their perspective of why, it helps me change my perspective, or at least inform my opinion, as you were saying.
Yes, I think it's really great in the Jack's artist scene. It's growing. It is exploding.
Growing, yes.
And it's a fun time to be in Jacksonville right now, because of, at the time when I started blogging, it was a different cultural renaissance at the time. When I started, it was coming up at a time where food trucks were transitioning into brick and mortars. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing, because there was a lot of like food truck parks.
I remember Happy Grilled Cheese was a big thing.
Happy Grilled Cheese, Corner Taco. Yep. Shout out to Corner Taco. And now, fast forward to now, I know we'll probably move backwards, but fast forward to now, it's like there's like an explosion of everything. And it's great.
I love it.
It's to buy and support art from living artists cannot be understated.
That's what this whole shelf is local artists here in Jacksonville.
Because I tell anybody, if you really want to get into art, go to the now. Go see the artists that are doing things now, that are standing by their artwork. It's a lot easier. I say work your way backwards. It's a lot easier to understand the thought process when that artist is right there. Mm-hmm. Literally there to... their heart and soul is literally being represented in the art that they just made. And to connect with that opens the doorways to appreciate, in my humble opinion, the fine art when you go into someplace like Cummer Museum.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Which has a great mix of a lot of the fine arts and then some contemporary section. And then take that and go into MoCA, Museum of Contemporary Art, where there's even more meet and greets of
That's pretty cool.
Artists.
I've never been to MoCA before.
You got to go.
I've been to the Cummer Museum. I remember I took I forgot what kind of art class it was. It was a specific art class in college, and they wanted me to go to the Cummer Museum, go kind of pick out 3 different pieces and write something about them. You know, like your opinions, what it made you feel, kind of like how we were talking about with the art shows. And I really enjoyed it because I actually took her with me. You know, we walked around and I got to go see things. It's just experiencing something new is what excites me, because, you know, seeing the same thing over and over again, you just get bored with it.
Right.
That whole museum is filled with everything you could think of, whether it's from paintings to sculptures to, I mean, don't they have like a botanical garden over there at the Cumber Museum too?
Yes.
Yeah, so they have everything.
Yeah, they have like the Italian and English gardens in the back.
That's what it is.
And they started doing a lot of events where they'll have like these concert galas, a variety of different events where now they'll have like free Saturdays. There's Tuesday evenings are free to attend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so there are things to do. I know it's kind of like there are things to do here.
Always.
In Jackson, not to underestimate the growth of the art scene. Kind of spice it up a bit. Like, hey, well, okay, well, go check out some art and then go get a cocktail.
Yeah.
And go to the symphony.
I was saying, I'm sure
plugging for the symphony.
The symphonies, I like that stuff's interesting too, because it's different than what I hear on a daily basis.
Yes.
And I feel like one group that's doing a really good job, obviously I was talking about Safe House, but including Wind Down Wednesday.
Yes.
We just had them on last week, and they're doing a great job as well, seeing everything.
That's a great group.
Yes.
Well, he's a buddy.
All of them are?
Yeah, I'm acquainted with all of them.
That's awesome.
I've known Will Morgan the longest.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we had Dr. Dom on, his wife Kalia, and then we had Robbie on.
Right.
I was only able to interview 3 people at a time because I only have the 4 microphones.
Right.
But like just sitting down and listening to each of them, everybody's very educated, which I found you know, it was awesome to hear. Like Dr. Dom is like creating his own orthotic. His wife is a therapist, and then Robbie, I believe he says he owns his own like insurance firm, and he also makes music and all this stuff. I was sitting there and they were telling me this, as well as everything they're doing for Wine Down Wednesday. I'm like, I was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah.
I was like sitting there. I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I guess is what I'm hearing.
No, I think we need that. We've needed that for so long. There's this, I call it a second renaissance, in my opinion, where we have ones that are either visited Jacksonville, heard of it in passing, but now for whatever reason they are here and they're bringing those ideas with them to elevate the culture.
And I love it
a bit more.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to see. I just like seeing new players in the mix, personally.
It helps me out as well. I find anytime I'm on Instagram, I'm like, they're new. I haven't talked to them yet. Let me see what they're about. But let's get into your blog a little bit.
Okay.
So how long have you been blogging, and what are the main things that you kind of feature, or like your main topics that you speak on about your blog?
Yeah, so I've been blogging for now 13 years. I kind of like to tell people I come from the old part of the matrix of Instagram.
The old matrix.
Me looking at these youngins. Look at y'all with your reels and your stories. I can do that too. How I got into that, essentially just, I was working in Medicare.
Really?
Instagram was growing. I was still, don't get me wrong, still playing violin, but you know, sometimes you gotta pay the bills.
Oh, fam, I got off work right before I came and saw you here, so I understand that feeling.
It's the same thing. So, yeah, I was working in Medicare at the time, Florida Blue. I was at Florida Blue at the time, and for my lunch break, I would go to walk down to 5 Points.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And this was at a time when Instagram was fairly new, and I was anonymous online. I, at the time, called myself the Sockateur, because early on there was just so many, when Instagram was pretty much about photos, then it was all about photos than anything else. In the fashion side of things, there were, you know, you had your bloggers that were blogging about their entire outfits, but then you had bloggers that kind of did sort of deconstructive style of blogging. You had your suit guys that they were like headless, but you would see only their suits. You had the guys that were about dress shirts, or no, like dress shoes, your sneakerheads. Well, there was a lot more different communities, so to speak. Like, before I understood what Reddit was, Reddit to me was the time for like these different bubbles of communities popping up. And there was like the sock game community, and that's what appealed to me, because growing up, like, my parents always dressed me and my sister well. They raised us with the mindset of like being presentable to the world,
of course.
And with that, my sister was getting married at the time, and I was a groomsman as well as the violinist.
Oh, wow.
And the tuxedo rentals came with these cool socks and matching pocket squares. That was totally new to me, had no idea. And in fact, I thought I needed to return everything, wash, including the socks. And they're like, no, keep them. Mm-hmm. So I started wearing the socks with certain things that I had. And then I went to Nordstrom Rack, and there was this huge section of all these fun sock designs. So I just became obsessed collecting them. Hence, the Sockator got its name.
I love that name, by the way. That's a super catchy name.
Yeah, and my sister gets the credit for that. She came up with that as a play upon being like a connoisseur of collecting socks. And so I was doing that. I had a private account where I was like, as you see me sitting here, I would take the photo with my phone, top down with my legs crossed, and you would see the socks with the shoes. At first, when I tried to explain it, folks thought it was some kind of fetish page. I was like, it's not that. It really was. I mean, that's the thing. That is the thing. I mean, there's certain type of blogging, if you ain't careful, that's what you're communicating, huh? Especially the sheer sock stuff.
Getting spicy over there.
Man. I used to have those followers. Man, has Instagram changed. But wow.
Instagram used to be a wild place. It still is, but I remember back in the day.
It was a great time, though, because that was the time when you could see who liked what's photos. It destroyed or repaired relationships.
I forgot about that. It's just like the days of Snapchat when you used to be able to see your best friends and everything on it. Oh,
that was epic.
That used to cause issues.
It was problematic, but it was epic. It was an epic time. I felt like a lot of answers were I got a lot of my questions were answered at the time. But anyway, so I just started, before even understanding what blogging was, I just got into just sharing that. But then I was thinking, how can I pair this with the colorful things that was going on in Jacksonville? There's these new businesses. Again, at the time, this was the transition of food trucks getting into brick and mortar, because Jacksonville ultimately, in my opinion, is still more like a foodie city by the end of the day.
I can see that.
So I was kind of food and football, but
yes. The Jaguars and food.
Yes. And military.
Yes.
And so how could I tie that in that made sense to me? And so I did it anonymously. And it was I would have it in a way where it was top down, but if I had a nice meal or a coffee, I would make sure it was aesthetic, because there was also this style of shooting. Everything was top down. You would folks taking photos of where they were standing, where there was nice tiles. Man, that was actually a really cool concept at the time. I got my start at Brew 5 Points.
Okay,
shout out to Brew. That's where the Sockator was born, and folks were just curious. I started building a following out of anonymity. I can't even say the word.
Anonymity.
That word.
I got you.
Yeah. And yes, it was a simpler time. I was just growing my own community. I didn't fully know what I was doing. I just really enjoyed doing it. And then it just got the attention of independent sock brands.
Wow.
And then local businesses. I did a story for PBS. I was like,
whoa.
Yeah.
When did you really feel that traction of people are actually noticing what I'm doing?
When a news article for Florida Times Union.
Wow.
That was when it was just kind of what's happening? It was just that curiosity, just the innocence of it, the freedom of just creating, and not necessarily having to explain everything of who you are, which is, I feel like, the biggest contrast today. This is everything who I am today, but a lot of giving. It wasn't, there was a mystique to Instagram at the time that really drew people in. And I got to the point where I felt comfortable to share myself, because I felt like I still wanted that connection. So folks set a face to the page. And then eventually I reviewed myself. And things didn't really take off until I got discovered Instagram at the time, it was a very different plane. It was they would do these features on their own page, and they would have these weekend. It was the weekend hashtag project.
Yep,
that was the project that really got a lot of people to grow, but I did it strategically in the theme of what I was doing. I was mixing in this niche fashion mixed in with lifestyle blogging. So I only did things if it made sense to my page.
Gotcha.
So it wouldn't look so like, oh, well, what is this, about? And man, I've been through the time when Instagram introduced video for the first time.
I was too.
Huge.
No, I was too. I remember when you'd post, and like back in the day, it was all about the hashtags.
It was.
And I would post something and I would use the right hashtags, and it'd be like, boom. Every time I would update my feed, it was like 10 likes, 30 likes, 40 likes, and just keep on going.
It was glorious.
It was. And now today, and that was before the time where you could really make money off of, social media.
Yeah.
And now today, obviously, everybody's clamoring for attention. I know we're sitting here doing this now, for people to check us out and stuff. But I feel like back then, as you were saying, it was more pure. You're putting your stuff out there.
It was way more pure. So, I mean, I'm still a purist at heart in terms of, there are some people I know that I follow to this day that have never posted a reel.
Yeah,
ever.
That's real.
Or a story.
Really?
And they still exist.
I love it.
And I'm like, kudos to you. I mean, I have mad respect for that. But yeah, my following really grew when I got picked. It was a fashion project. Landon Nordeman was a fashion photographer who was famous, still famous. He's a published New York Times photographer. He's famous for shooting the backs of people at events.
Interesting.
It was like an interesting twist. It was a different take on shooting candids, but he would use flash and he would shoot the backs of people, or not always the full person. And there's just the way that people just naturally position themselves, and then with the clothes that they're wearing, that's just intriguing. And the vibrancy. And somehow he would shoot and it'd be up close. So the theme of the project would be get close. So I did a self-portrait of me wearing a particular floral shirt up close. And I used natural light, but I brightened it in a way where it gave the illusion that I was using flash. Oh. And I was picked as one of the 5. And that's when my following exploded.
Yeah,
it just exploded.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. I love your creativity, by the way. Like, anytime I look on your page or I see something pop up that you posted, I love how everything looks. Everything's very clean. Everything is just...
That's me.
Yeah. No, you do an amazing job.
Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoy your page. And
Thank you.
Whenever you actually responded back to my message, I was like, I'm excited to sit down and talk with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No, like, for me, like, sometimes I feel weird hitting up people because I'm like, do they even care? Or like what I have to say, or, kind of thing. Yeah. And I personally enjoy anytime I get that message back. Like, I would love to sit down. I was like, perfect. I thought it was really cool that you were interested in coming sitting down and talking. And I love your story. Everything it sounds like your life has been very interesting, and you've lived, I feel like, many lives compared to a lot of other people.
Oh, I love how you said that. That's so true. I feel like I said, this is a different version of the Matrix right now. Well, but I just grew. So what ended up happening was I started forming relationships with other brands. Before I was shooting for Samsung, I was doing Google,
Coach, and everything as well. Yeah, I saw.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. I did my research.
Yeah,
I was telling you.
Definitely, not a lot of people know about that.
I saw.
Yeah, so I definitely did some styling for Coach, and that was through a photographer mentored of mine, Jensen Handing. Hey, Jensen.
Hi, Jensen.
Yeah. It also, because I became such a geek about socks, and at this time, I'm also, sharing insights on this. On styling with a Floridian point of view, because that was my thing. I didn't feel like there's enough of that, but I would still incorporate the sock game. I got into making socks.
Oh, really? That's really cool.
Like the ones I'm wearing now, like the J-Mix and Upland clothing.
Shout out Upland. I would say, shout out to them.
These came out last year and sold out.
Ooh, congrats.
Yeah.
Say, I got in my sock drawer, I'm a very colorful, obviously you see me wearing a bright orange shirt right now.
Yes.
I don't always go for the highest quality of socks, but I am a very bright colored person. So anytime you see me wearing like a suit, you'll see some crazy polka dots or just a mix of different colors just to add a little bit of a splash in there.
Oh, you're my sock bro.
Oh yeah, I got socks.
Okay.
Shannon knows, like for me, for Christmas, I'm always like bright colored socks or something. Yes, I'm right there with you.
Jax, why do y'all hate socks? I don't understand that.
Don't be hating.
Don't be hating.
For me though, I say a lot of times I don't wear the high socks all the time just because I'll look pasty white from my feet to up here sometimes. So I try to keep the tan going. You know what I mean? Have a little bit of color to me.
Well, and I get it. It's hot right now, so it's not necessarily the go-to thing. But I always tell people combed cotton.
I guess that's true. A little more breathable, I guess you'd say.
It's soft. It's very thin. This is combed cotton, actually. Mm-hmm. I even have a pair of linen blended socks.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. So, we're going into the deep there.
I like it. It.
No, now that, it's not common, but there's this brand called Pantherella. Mm-hmm. It's an English sock making brand. Phenomenal brand. They use a lot of Egyptian cotton.
Okay.
And I'm a sucker for those of you who already know, like, Egyptian cotton is literally like
the best of the best.
It is the best of the best, in my opinion.
I've heard a lot of people talk about that with like sheets and stuff.
Yes, yeah. But they also are great for making socks.
Interesting.
It's much more refined. You can apply more color dyes. It's expensive, but worth it if you can get a hold of it. If you're friends with Egyptians, no, because the Egyptian farms, cotton farm. Mills, that's a huge cash crop.
I'm sure.
So you have to have some connections to them.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with having good connections.
Oh yes.
I tell people all the time, my network is my net worth a lot of times.
Yeah.
You never know.
Like my first collaborative sock design was through Bold Bean coffee roasters, and it was Egyptian. There's Egyptian and there's Egyptian mercerized cotton.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more bougie.
I like it. I like it.
But it's like they're so soft. It's like you get a sharp. You can do very complex designs.
Gotcha.
That's the thing.
It comes out better on the actual material itself.
Yeah, it lasts for years. I still have about 1,000 pairs.
Oh shit! Got all the socks.
Yeah, there's still ones I haven't even debuted on my Instagram to this day.
Keep an eye out, people. Yeah. So there's stuff in the works.
Oh yeah. I'm working on and I still do designs. I'll work with brands, menswear brands, but I still, even though right now my Instagram is now Jordan Mixson _ folks to this day still call me the Sockateur, and it's even in my bio, aka the Sockateur. Just grew that towards doing more fashion photography, and I still plug in Jacksonville, but I just prefer a much, because I'm proud to be born and raised here. That is the root for why I shoot in an editorial point of view.
Gotcha.
I want people to think there's been folks have told me like, oh, it has sort of a New York vibe the way I shoot in certain areas, because some things are pretty obvious and other things I'm kind of implying, evoking a space. And that's why I prefer an editorial point of view to my photography.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's your point of view. That's what you want to do. Because I've had people kind of try to tell me to do, like, get more controversial on the podcast and do all that stuff. And I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to put out. Like, my main goal with this is, like one day have my kids be able to listen to this and be like, oh, this is what my dad was at, like what he was like at 22. This is what he was thinking about, as well as like, upbringing my city. I was born and raised here in Jacksonville. And whenever I was younger, I wasn't the biggest fan.
Yeah.
And as I got older and meeting all the great people around here in Jacksonville through social media, through doing the podcast, I've really grown to love my city more than what I did, I would say, 5 years ago. Yeah.
And plus, too, the thing about being quote unquote controversial, there's an art to that.
Yes.
And there are things you're going to have to be willing to, like, if you're going to do that, I hope you consider various possible outcomes. Sometimes it happens unknowingly.
Very true.
I mean, the internet is the internet. Sometimes no matter what you put, the internet interpreted that entirely a different way.
Very true.
And you can only do so much. But then you do have those that are like, look, I feel like this has become your brand to be just controversial for the sake of being controversial.
It's just not my style.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a lot more, you know, we get deep into this, like one of our big topics is like mental health and things on here.
Yes.
That's something I'm very like proud about, you know. Like,
I'm glad you do that because frankly, not enough men are brave enough to talk about it as if it's this taboo thing. Mental health, I'm so glad you talked about that because during the pandemic, the lockdown, I saw so much content about mental health. A lot of different bloggers, different ones, and I approached it trying not to become this overnight psychologist all of a sudden on Instagram, but just finding healthy, respectable resources to share things. If anything, communicate. I know this is kind of diving into men's mental health a little bit, but in general, no, I think it's important because even coming out of that, I formed an even deeper connection with some of my followers. A lot of my followers are men, mostly men, and were, you know, discreetly shared that, hey, they shared what mental health looks like to them. That helps. But man, I applaud you for doing that because sadly there are ones that I kind of feel like this gets forgotten now that the world is busy again. Ones don't want to really talk about that again.
No, I totally agree.
And there are ones that I've known and loved. Unfortunately, didn't come out like people came out of the pandemic, but not everybody came out of that okay and still are not okay.
No, I totally agree with you.
Kudos to you of you and Shannon of bringing the importance of how it's not a taboo thing. It's like I think of it like we all do things for our mental health. For the most part, without even necessarily thinking it, just but putting words to that, articulating that, and how what works for you may not work for that other person, but the important thing is addressing it that helps you and your relationships, your overall well-being. It needs to be talked about.
It does, and that's my big thing is
advocated for.
That's right. That's the word. Advocate for it. No, it was a big part of my life growing up. You know, like I'm pretty jovial and happy as a person now, but then there's days outside, not on camera, where I'm down. You know, I'm having issues. You know, just different stuff going on, and I do get on here and talk about it. Obviously, you know, they don't get to see it, and that's not something I want to put out there as a day of me being depressed. You know what I mean, or a week or 2 weeks of me being depressed. But I do want people to have the comfortability of sitting down and talking with someone, you know, like you're not the only one. That's the main thing I try to put out there is like, you're not the only one going through this because I feel like whenever I was growing up, I feel like I didn't know what it was. It was like, I describe it as like a dark hug from behind as what my depression is. It feels like a weight on my shoulders that I just can't quite kick. And, you know, we've had men on here who are, you know, big macho guys and then they talk about it and, you know, that's a good thing. It doesn't, doesn't make you soft. It doesn't make you any of that. That's my big thing I put out there is like, everybody has a bad day, a bad week, a bad year. It happens to all of us. And at least my way of getting through it is through talking about it.
Yes.
You know, telling my stories of, you know, what I went through or, you know, me even telling like Shannon told me through many times, you know, like she'll notice whenever I'm quiet or like I'm a little bit withdrawn for a while. And she's like, what's going on with you? And a lot of times there's no answer to it. It's just more I woke up one day this week and I just felt rough. I don't know what it is.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes some people like they lost a job or they lost a girlfriend or they lost a boyfriend, whatever it is. And that's what messed with them. It's just, I think it is a topic that should be talked about more. I don't think you should lean on it all day, the whole time. You know what I mean? Yeah. You should be able to try to work through it. And obviously that can be in different ways, going through therapy, working out, doing your art, you know, doing a podcast. Like that's all different ways of being able to work through things. And I feel like it's good for people to talk about it, whether you're a man, woman, child, all of them. I feel like it's a very important topic to have a conversation about.
Amen to that.
Snap, snap, snap. But so we are getting a little bit towards the end of the podcast here, and I wanted to say thank you again so much for your time today. I really did enjoy learning more about you, and I would like to do a part 2 because you have done so much. I have stuff on the list that I still want to talk about with you in the future and everything. So you're always more than welcome. Anytime you have some free time, come back by. We'll have a sit down and have a conversation again. But I always ask this for a first timer on the podcast. It's my final question, and I'm sure you've heard it before. But my final question is, do you feel successful? And if you do or do not, in what ways?
I feel successful in knowing that I've just enjoyed a great time on social media. I've had ups and downs where there's been sort of this taboo thing like of, oh, you have a job, but then you also are a blogger. I feel successful in dispelling that notion. And because some people that try to go full time, I've had full time moments and go back, and there's no shame in that. I'm pretty content where I am. I'm very happy about that. I feel like there's still a lot more work to do in terms of elevating the culture. One of the things I'm doing right now to address that is to bring in another sector of Jacksonville. A big project I'm working on is the Velocity Vogue runway show that I'm working on with a great team to kind of help showcase or reintroduce Jacksonville to this amazing pool of local and surrounding talent.
Love that.
So I'm doing a lot more event producing for that. So that's coming up Saturday, October 5th. So that's one of my biggest projects.
Let me know about that.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to come check it out.
Oh, yeah. So that's something I've been working since last November.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I actually feel really content where I am creatively. I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes.
Same.
But if I was to tell anybody out there too, don't get caught up with all this rat race of trying to go viral and all this stuff. I played the long game. I've been on this platform for years. And I think that there's just this depression of, oh, well, this didn't perform the way I wanted to. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Don't focus so much on that. Just enjoy creating. Take a step back. Learn to be content with how you approach these platforms. You'll be fine. The right people are going to find you and support you. I've had stuff that's been viral. I've had stuff that's been okay. But by the end of the day, I still show up on this platform as myself, no matter what form that takes with the different iterations, these social platforms. And also log off. Just log off. It's okay. Come back to that. So no, if anything, I'm happy with just being content. And contentment is something I think needs to be advocated just as much out there.
No, I totally agree with you. You know, like you were saying with social media and everything, everybody's trying to go viral. Everybody's trying to make that one clip that will, you know, put them into stardom or whatever. And that's kind of the way I look at my social media. You know, we don't have tens of millions of followers, but we have people who want to come and check out the podcast and who enjoy it. And we get messages that are like, oh, I love that episode. And at the end of the day, that's what makes me happy. And this is something I enjoy putting out myself. This is my art. This is what I creatively like to do. And I put out, and that's what I put out there that day. It doesn't have to, it's not always going to be thousands and thousands of views. Some days it's 100. Other days it's a couple thousand. But at the end of the day, it's something I'm proud that I put out and enjoy putting out every single day.
There you go.
That's the biggest thing, you know. I feel like you were saying, just a lot of people get stuck in that race of, trying to do this. But at the end of the day, as long as you're happy with what you're doing, you're content, and you can be proud of it, I feel like that's the most beautiful thing you can do.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, man. And like I said, I really enjoy your page. I know there's a lot more we could have talked about. And like I said, there will definitely be a part 2 to this as long as you're willing. But definitely keep me updated about the show and everything like that. I would love to come out there and experience that and get involved in the community a little bit more as well.
Oh, yeah. I'll definitely, if I may, I can just, for those that want to be curious about that. Yeah. So there is a page, Velocity Vogue Jax.
I'll put that in the description.
VelocityVogue.Jax, that is. So it's a new page. be sure to follow that. That's where the updates is going to be at the Jack Sports Car Museum.
Nice.
It's the first runway show of its type it's a runway show that I get to play with $15 million worth of cars.
Ooh, I like that.
Ain't nobody doing that. And Jack, let me tell you, look, it's going to be something else. I cannot wait. It's just, again, I just applaud everybody in Jacksonville that is trying to elevate the culture in various ways. And this is something that I'm super passionate about with my team. And this is just another added element to showcase what Jacksonville. My goal is to look at it as Jacksonville. You didn't know you wanted this.
But now you do.
You do. And all these other wonderful things that are happening right here.
That's beautiful. Like I said, so guys, make sure you guys go follow that page. It will be put in the description. Before I let you go, Jordan, you want to promote your own Instagram page one more time before I let you go?
Yeah, so you can find me at Jordan Mixson _ and you can also see my extensive work out on my website, jordanmixson.com.
So, guys, make sure you guys go give him a follow on both the pages. Go check out his website. Everything will be put in the description. You can click and go straight to them. Go check out everything he does. Like I said, extensive work, beautiful photos, the sock tour. Get to go check out all the different socks, different designs, all kinds of different stuff that he has going on. So make sure you guys give him a follow. Comment on his page. Let him know the Who Are You sent you. I love when my followers and listeners go check out the guys and gals that we have on the podcast. Makes me feel good about it. And as also, if you guys want to give us a follow on any of the social media, it's going to be at Who Are You Pod from everything from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X now, Facebook, all the normal spots. And if you guys want to give us a subscribe to see the videos, every time we get more subscribers, it makes me more excited to put out some more videos. It's going to be Who Are You podcast on YouTube. Make sure you guys give us a follow, subscribe, all the normal things. Also, is if you guys know anybody who has a story needs to be told, a business owner, artist, entrepreneur, really a mix of anything, feel free to shoot me an email. It's going to be whoareyoupod@yahoo.com or shoot me a message on all of our social medias as well. But as I say every single week, y'all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.